Thank you very, very much for these 2 days. It was the first in real life hack day since I think quite a while for me. The Open Data had one, the farming hack days at the beginning of September. I think the last one was really quite a while ago, and it is so much more pleasant and it's so much more fluid. I really enjoyed discussions with all of you, and I hope, or not all of you, but some of you, and I hope you had just as exciting discussions and interesting discussions with people outside of your groups. What I also really appreciated again is that I had the feeling that the challenges were actually again proposals from the companies and the sponsors and the partners that are actually very important topics, but they're maybe not in the core center of their jobs, and so they can't really find the capacities to deal with these issues. But thanks to the hack days, they are able to put a focus for a few days on a topic which is actually not survival important, but system important, system relevant. And it's great that there is this extra capacity to think about these system relevant topics with you, and I hope you felt that too. Now I'm welcoming Cédric Aubert, who is going to make a quick introduction or a quick, I don't know, are you planning for long?
Do you have some pointer?
If you have one, that's great, and otherwise we have one.
Oh, sure.
Maybe it's better, yeah, if you do like that, if you have the thing. Does it work? Look, he wants you to get informed about that. Let's see if he's happy. Oh, I'm not sure if it's gonna work.
Because then I will ask.
Yeah, I will just do the whole way, like this.
So thank you very much for inviting me to have a quick introduction, you say, but I have about 10 minutes, I think. Thank you, Matthias, for inviting me here. I think Energy Data Hackdays, with that title, Shape the Future of Energy. It's quite ambitious, 24 hours to shape the energy future. It's quite ambitious. I think you should have titled that Save the Future of Energy, because we are in a transition, you know that, going from the traditional centralized power generation. Now we go to a decentralized renewable system, energy system. And the idea here is, of course, how do we do that? Because traditional is a long time frame. If you consider a power plant, a nuclear power plant, it's 30, 40, and now a confederation wants to have 60 years old duration. So if you have that, and now in the last 10 days, 1 decade, it happened so many things in the energy sector. And I think it's good to think about what comes next, or what we are in the middle of the transition, energy transition, and how can we save or shape or solve the problem. And I just said, just use the data. Of course, if I'm invited to have a small talk for Energy Data Hackdays, I think data should have place here. But I'm really pleased to be here because data on energy is two fields or two topics I worked with. I started my career about 30 years ago. It's quite a long time. Not so far from here at PSI in the research, in nuclear safety research, and we were investigating passive cooling system for new nuclear reactor. Of course, if I say that today, I'm not really trendy, just with the word nuclear. After that, I moved, after 7 years in the nuclear safety, where I was in charge of data from acquisition to archiving, about over analytics and reporting. Then I thought, maybe the question you can answer that, what is more dangerous than nuclear? Somebody any ideas? Yeah. What? Core? No. It's finance. If the finance system collapses, I think we will have more problems than if we have a collapse in the nuclear energy. It's maybe a joke, but I went to the finance industry, to Swiss Re, so reinsurance, and over there it's also only data. In the finance institute, you just have data, data, and data. There is nothing. In this energy sector, you cannot split the physics and the financial position. You always have to produce and then to consume. And maybe it's really interesting, or you have to understand the energy sector is you produce and you consume. You cannot have batteries coming, but to keep the energy, it's very difficult. So producing and consuming is really the essence of energy system or the equilibrium in energy system. And if you don't want to have that, you need to have the information real time. And that's why data is very important. But the paradigm or the shift in the energy is before we have to adapt the production to the consumer consumption. Now we have to do the opposite way, to adapt the consumption of the production. Because production is decentralized with renewable energy, it's very stochastic. We don't know when it's producing, so we have to adapt it. And it's why you said just use data. So my name is Cédric Aubert. I'm CEO from GeoProSwiss. So after PSI, I went to Swiss Re, I went to Expo. And at the last stage, I was at EWZ, the utility of the city of Zurich, and I was in charge of trading, risk management, and market research. And in all this stage position, I always used data. And it was large companies, and we had large processes, and we had a lot of things to do. And I always said we could do more of the data. And even if we had the data, at EWZ, I was in the board, so I could have said, yeah, we do it. It was quite difficult. Because we said, no, not yet, or we can do something else, or we have to operate our power plants. And then I decided 2 years ago, last year, to move to GeoProSwiss. And over there, we do documentation for infrastructure, energy supply infrastructure. So power, lane, gas, water, and there we want to make more out of the data. I have a few slides, just I would say not very technically. It's a basic notion, just more to illustrate what is really this Hackdays. I never attend to a hackathon, every time, but just as a speaker. I saw on the LinkedIn that a few of you, it's also the first time here. And there is also already a lot of hackathon happens in the few, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 years, but it's still new. And so I repeat a few notions which I think are very important. The value of the data, what is the value of the data? And if you take Steve Jobs, who's quite involved in all this industry, he said once, it was with the iPad, I think, or I don't know. He said the value of iPad is not the price, but what you do out of it. And the data is exactly the same. Data, if you don't do with anything with the data, it's not really valuable. And if you can handle them with the data, you are very rich, or you have a lot. Let's see, water.
Yeah, I hid it from my camera.
Oh, sorry. bit nervous because I'm from the French part of Switzerland, hear that. And I never worked in French. I used to work at PSI in Switzerland in English, was nice. But now in Baden and TWC, it was only Deutsch. So my English is lost, is gone. But I do it anyway. So I think value of the data is really what you do with that. And I was really impressed to see all these groups. I was yesterday afternoon here, and it's sunny outside, and I'm still here, and it's sunny outside, and we will try to make something of these challenges. Now, I'm quite impressed. I mean, maybe we can go to the next. And I think if you do that, it's a mindset. I think using data in the energy sector is quite new, it's still new. There is other industry, Google and Co. We know they do a lot with data already a long time, but for the energy sector, it's new. And why is that still new, or why the energy sector hasn't found a way earlier? Because the mindset, you need to change the mindset. Or if you don't have this priority, you keep it for later. And I think really doing more, using the data is really a mindset. You need to have the curiosity. You need to want to discover this further dimension. I don't know which one it is. It's certainly not the third one or the second one, but the further dimension, digging into the data, actually looking at the whole system in another way. So you need to have this mindset. So something obvious, the new gold rush. That gold rush, if I remember well, I was not in California or Zurich, but I think not everybody says it. And what I want to say here is, of course, we hear so many times data is so valuable, you have to do more with the data, but how you do that, it's not so clear, it's not evident. You have to practice and you have to do it well. And I will just bring 1-2 word or notion for that. Data quality is maybe important. And sometimes you want to analyze data, but you forget that the data quality is not so good. So garbage in, garbage out, you know this expression. I think here is the first bit full we have to care about. But it's not only that, it's the data confidentiality, data availability. Is a lot of technical aspect. You cannot have just the data and then you can do it on something or that. You have to really carefully handle the data. And this is something, it's a gold rush, but not everybody will succeed in that. But actually, everybody should go into it, and we should get familiar with that. On the energy sector, I think is still trying. We still have a lot of the way still of the energy sector. My favorite is that data alone is nothing, I would say. Data alone is just documentation. But actually, now with all the technological development, it's incredible
Sorry, guys. We're back there. This was the perfect time for you to get prepared to the next part of the presentation, which are your presentations. You won 1 minute because we have, I think, 13 groups instead of the planned 20. So that's great. Try to keep a little bit of time for questions and answers. But then we can start with the first group, which is actually not the group number 1, but the group number 4. So who is the happy presenter?
I think I will click because I have a lot of time. I have to
Okay, so
where
click
first?
here. I think you click here.
on the next one. Okay,
This one.
Okay.
Shall I?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a great time in the past 2 days. At least group number 4 had a great time. We were the group who was going to analyze the Swiss electricity demand. Let me see if this works. Yes. So as a short reminder, we'll keep it very short because you already heard it. We all know that there is a need to better understand all that data that is available. For example, the high resolution energy or even more specific electricity data. And therefore we wanted to create a platform to be able to analyze the model-based future, but also historical electricity consumption data, is able to compare that using novel indicators that are relevant. And with this, we hope to get more insight in what is going on in the energy transition and how can we compare different years together. All in order to be prepared for the future and be ready to strike back against any challenges. So our main learnings, as said, we had a great time. That also means that we had a lot of learnings, and I will only point out 2 because of the time. So the one is that we found out that resolution really matters. Well, sounds super cliche in general, but I'll come back to it. And also that visualizations can be misleading. Another very cliche one, but don't worry. Let's dive into it. So what do we mean by those statements? And here you can see the consumption data for a full year. In blue, you can see the 2009, and in red, the 2019 data. And we use this from openly available data from Swissgrid. And if you look at this data, you actually can think, okay, the variance for the red lines in the 2019 data is much higher than for the 2009. You can start drawing all kinds of conclusions. But if you use another resolution, namely the 50-minute resolution, as you can see in this graph, you actually see that this variance is different in the difference in variance. Disappeared. So for us, that was just very important. If we want to look at data, if we want to analyze it, please be careful, make wise decisions when deciding for a certain time scale. And the second takeaway for us was that visualizations can be misleading, because we use this kind of visualizations to look at the ramping. So, for example, for electricity, the transmission operators, it's important to know when the extreme ramping occurs, so when there's super high demands followed by a low demand. And looking at this data, you think, okay, in 2019, it's crazy. There's so much more maximum and minimum values. However, as you can see on the left side, the actual values of this total ramping in a year is the one is for 2009, the other for 2019. They actually do not differ so much. It's just that there were some individual super heavy, high and low values that were, of course, at that time quite heavy. But if you look at the right side, you can see that the average ramping was quite similar for both. So that means that also when visualizing, we have to be super careful. Conclusions and next steps. Well, we were super happy to use Google Colab. It was very nice for us to, not having to send and share or email or something our data and just work together. And of course, super fruitful discussions with other groups. For future work, we continue to work. We continue creating the platform for the actual data analysis using all these novel indicators such as ramping and extreme days. You can find our code on GitHub, and our team info is also on the slide if you want to ask more questions or if you want to find out more about all the other things that we discussed. I think that's it. So happy to answer any questions, and great thanks to the rest of the team for this nice days. Thank you. I don't see any questions, so.
Thank you.
I also didn't manage to find a question. Maybe later. We have also the apéro time where, of course, you're very welcome to go towards the team members and get into the discussion. So the second group who's presenting is the number 5, who actually did quite a spontaneous action, I think, later in the evening.
So, hello, I'm Ben again from NCC Automation. Yesterday our challenge was not selected, so I sat there with the MBA group and drank beer. And then Martin came and said, well, what was your idea? And we quickly brainstormed about, well, we would like to upload a file, transform it and store it into a database, and we would like to make this database public. So Martin said, okay, let's take a flip chart and let's sketch it. So then Martin overnight made some mockups in the website platform where you could upload your data file that you would have exported from your smart meter platform. And that would result in many problems because every browser language configuration would lead to a bit different date timestamp, and then the import would get messed up. So these problems. So we thought a different approach is, let's take one vendor, and we selected SmartMe, and let's take their API, ask for username and password, and just download the data indirectly. So we built a website. You can go to app.datalog.ch, enter the username and password of your SmartMe, if you have a SmartMe counter or meter. And in the background, we would query the SmartMe server and download all your historic data and real-time data and future data as long as you don't change your password. So now it looks like a phishing attack. We need to add some legal framework, and that's where Peter came into play. We said, okay, now we need to make some. But that's like the next steps. Let's make this not just a quick hack. Thank you very much. It was really fun.
That's story. Thank you very much. Any questions or any suggestions or offer for support?
I'll stay here for the beers, right?
Yeah, for the beers. So data log.
I think we discussed already. I think the password approach is efficient. There must be another approach that maybe this is a bit connected to our work, actually, that we try to free up the data at a meter, and then maybe also the way how we can share the data, that we still keep the data privacy, but would then define a way how we can share our data, or the individual can share the data in a way without conflicting with the data privacy. I think that we on our side could easily implement something that we would forward our data on a platform without really conflicting with some data privacy. So maybe that's the next.
Peter?
Yeah, we discussed it quite at the end, so it didn't make any slides anymore. And one of the ideas was, actually, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer as well, but I've been working in banks for a long time, so I know that the lawyers are going to say So one option is to make it totally open. The second option would be to make it open to somebody who registers, and coming from the EID world partially, make it open to somebody who has been properly identified. And with that, if you announce it in advance, then you can cover all these cases.
Okay, great. So you know what to work on next year. Yes, number 6, Brazil.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon on this Saturday by the wind farm group of Brazil. Can I click here? So just to quickly introduce the problem again, we have this wind farm. The turbines there have turbine interactions due to wave effects. You can see this in the picture. When there's a turbine behind another one, it's quite nicely visualized here by the clouds and humidity. They change the wind speed, and that of course impacts the power generation of turbines behind that. And so what we did in our group is we tried to visualize and analyze the wind farm to see if we have any information useful in the data set that we provided. And then we wanted to build a graph neural network to represent the wind farm and potentially make power output predictions. So yeah, so this is part of the data. Of course, it's a huge wind farm, so we just selected this one piece here to visualize and to show what's going on. We have this wind turbine 5, which you see the green dots there, and then we have a wind turbine at the very end of the wind farm that is not actually impacted by any other turbine. And you clearly see that the wind speed of wind turbine 5 is it has a deficit there, so we can conclude that it's actually impacted by the surrounding turbines that we see there. So we concluded, yeah, our data has a high resolution. We have information in there that we then can feed into our neural graph. Why did we decide the graph network? I mean, we can naturally represent the wind farm. As you can see there, each turbine can be a node. You have a connection, an edge between nodes, which is the distance and the angle between them. And what we wanted to do with it then is to model wind turbine interactions in terms of wave effects. And it should also allow us to do some power predictions, which help to devise and improve control strategies to improve the power output. It helps with the grid balance, the power grid, and it's also helpful for energy market predictions. So how does it look, graph network? As I said, each turbine is a node. It contains, in our case, wind speed. Then each turbine is connected by an edge. It's called an edge, and we use the distance and the angle between them. And we have a global attribute U, which is the wind direction, which is valid for the whole wind farm, because we just captured it in one position for the whole wind farm, and the timestamp. The timestamp is also important because we can have daily, monthly, weekly, seasonal effects. So it's also very important to feed that into the whole model to make better predictions depending on when in the year you feed data into it. So we use all of this data to build the model. It's encoded into a latent space, which doesn't represent real data anymore. Then we train functions, learnable functions on them, and then we decode it back to get our output predictions. We also have some, because it was quite a task, we have just some preliminary results on a small subset. On the left side, you see the loss function. So after many iterations, you see actually the losses go down, they converge. And at the right side, you see the power prediction. It's quite, you have some fluctuations there, but I think for this small subset, it's quite a promising result that we can further investigate this model. Maybe next year's hackathon to continue with this task, because as you said, it's also not a core business for us, and it's quite nice to discover things like this at a hackathon. Yeah, conclusions is we have a data set which has valuable information for such a model. The problem so far we only used, because of time constraints, a small subset. So the next steps obviously would be the use of the entire data set and potentially also change the node features, the edge features, and test many different combinations to find other information in our data, to do more predictions of other variables, basically. And I think with that, it's concluded. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Maybe not so many questions about the model, because it's I might not have the answers.
I have a question. So it's a naive question because, but is the prediction the idea that you predict the production of the specific farm, or is the prediction or the goal of the prediction to apply it to future farms that are not there yet, to place the windmills at the play, well, without as many interactions?
So the first and main idea of this is for the actual wind farm to make the predictions. I mean, it's very important you can use it for anomaly detection. You have a model, the model knows what the energy of the power should be. And when you then measure the difference in power and the model power, you could maybe conclude that there's something going on with a specific turbine. Something like this, you can make power predictions of that wind farm to serve the global market, to make ahead predictions before you put it into the grid, basically. So that's the first main idea of this approach.
But could you go one step further in the planning?
Actually, I can't answer that question. I think, we need to do that.
So, like with the model that we have designed, this is clearly very dependent on the geography of turbines. But the graph approach has the advantage that if you have also something that is with more turbines, then you can apply the same function, same model to another farm. So if the farm had a similar configurations, but more winds, more turbines, then it could probably still work.
Or to add some in the wind farm?
You will probably have to, obviously the nicest thing to do would be just to retrain it and apply it, the retrain to the specific data sets that you are looking at. But the model is flexible enough that it applies on a wind turbine basis, node basis. So.
Thank you very much. I see another question here.
I'm still used to working with wind. So I think it's very important to predict the power generation. If you want to bring the electricity in the market, the problem is the renewable. The market cannot afford to have a stochastic electricity. So if you can predict it for an existing farm, it's very, very important. So don't try to make too much
Out of it. And just my naive questions. I'm an architect, so I'm always planning, So number 7. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Colin again from VIA, CEO of VIA. I'm just a challenge owner and spoke to you yesterday. Our team did great work yesterday, so much great work that I gave them the day off today. So, unfortunately, none of them are here today, so I'll be presenting some of the results that we have. If you recall, the main thing we developed was we had a market that allowed a little bit, as you were discussing earlier, the ability to have models and bring them to the data so that particularly smart meter data can remain private and secure and in its own format, and you don't have to go through that translation and data privacy issues. Next slide, please. So we learned, what did we learn today? We learned 5 things. Let's do the numbers. Right? So in the US, we have this thing at the end of the day when the stock market closes, and they say, let's do the numbers. What was the market up or down? So we learned 5 key outcomes during the last couple of days. Number one, the first thing was I learned personally about a new market opportunity. So Lucas from BFA, from the Swiss Federal Office of Energy at the back, won a VIA baseball cap as a result of teaching us about the area of interest around the cybersecurity and the importance of cybersecurity in building data. That was not an area we had thought of or were exploring before, but given some of the work we've been doing in other areas, thought it's an easy extension for us and not something that can, might be of interest. So happy to learn at least one new area, a new area of extension for ourselves. Second, we had 4 Swiss utilities that we were able to demonstrate to the market to. We're new to Switzerland, so always great to see the opportunity to meet new people, and getting 35 minutes or 40 minutes with a utility to walk through the platform and get their feedback was incredibly valuable. We also got recommendations to 5 other utilities. So in addition to the initial 4, we had someone who recommended, hey, here are 5 others that you should go talk to, and they should be interested in what you're doing. We had 7 users actually log into our platform and get feedback. So that was helpful to us to always hear, here's how this works, here's what we learned. 7 who were not VIA people, just so we're all clear. They're not, not part of our, not, technically employed by me. And the last one was, if you recall correctly, our goal was to not just have people log in and test the platform, but also come up with model ideas. So we had not more than I expected. We had 9 new ideas, and I'll quickly give you a quick overview of that. As a recap, next one, please. As a recap, we started by saying, hey, our partner Hochschule Lucerne had developed models related to non-intrusive load monitoring, load forecasting, anomaly detection. Those were available. We downloaded to whatever utility needed or wanted to test those. If you flip ahead, it turns out that they were interested in developing new models. So these are actually on the site. Look, and you can see these were other ideas that sort of came up as areas of interest in models that could use the exact same data sets for advanced analytics. And there's 3 here, next page.
Another one.
3 more that came up there. And 3 more again, I think, at the next page. Oh, and then the last, so there were 9 in total. So that was the basic overview of, nice to see that people have taken the time, not just log it, but actually create new model proposals. So I think one of the key things you have actually is, as a request is, what's next? So I have a few quick questions for folks here. As a show of hands, how many people here are committed to clean energy, clean technologies, the transition to the clean environment? I would hope it's a Saturday evening on your Hackdays. I would hope everybody is. It's always good to see, right? I'm curious about the people who didn't raise their hands, but so it's great to see that. How many people here are interested in not just clean energy and natural, but also in collaborating and giving their, in order to accomplish that, working together to accomplish that.
I mean, you're at the right place for that.
I would hope so. I would hope so. So my request, what's next is, you may recall when we spoke yesterday, I said that I had these little slips of paper. I held them up yesterday, and I said I have these little slips of paper. They are usernames and logins for the platform. And so I have a request, which is you take one and pass them along. And there's nothing to do but look at the models and vote. Do you like it? Do you not like them? Right? Are these good or bad? Literally, it should take you less than 1 minute, right, to be able to test. Upvote or downvote. If you've used Facebook or LinkedIn or any platform in the world, it should take you 2 seconds. What's your opinion? Collaborate. Let's create the clean energy transition together. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Is it
something because I have no clue. So, but would you? So for me, I could just say, hey, they all look cool. Is there an expectation that one should test them, or what is the expectation behind a upvote or downvote?
I think that will lead the one of the questions you had earlier that asks is, well, what do people do? A lot of down, we hope we know who's voting, and so if there are a lot of utilities or a lot of power companies or people who say this is a bad idea, then like we probably won't invest very much behind that. And if there's hey, that's a great idea, we're interested in that, that directs prioritization of resources. So we have a number of academic partners, Hochschule here, Aubert University in Denmark, major Duke University in the United States that we're working with. Those would be people who could say, hey, this is something we should double down on.
Okay, so, oh, I don't know if it works. Does it work? Okay, it does. So you start from the idea that as you distribute the passwords, it's a kind of peer review.
Yes, exactly. And as you say, hopefully it's the more sophisticated peers, it's not like really open to the general public. So.
Any other question? Less naive than mine. Well, again, I think you're going to be at the apéro for a few questions, or you're flying.
I am flying out, but I have to get COVID tested first.
Okay. So we don't get there. But thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Philip is driving, presenting us the digital twin.
Cool, welcome everybody. So it's my great pleasure to show you the results we have achieved in the last 2 days. And I just can point. So maybe a quick reminder, what was our goal? We wanted to understand which potential can we generate for energy efficiency based on smart domestic appliances. And basically we focused on 3 aspects. First of all, we asked ourselves if we monitor the heating system, can we predict the heat demand in order to optimize its provision or potentially use inertia effects to reduce peaks. Then we wanted to understand, is it really possible to do a digital twin model of our data that allows us to predict short-term the evolution of the temperature and therefore maybe take appropriate measurements to prevent comfort disadvantages and such things by smart control. And eventually, as a third topic, we asked ourselves, well, given a good fairy, a good widget that helps us to get whatever we think of as a functionality, what would we ask her or him as a functionality? How could we turn this into business? Go to the next slide. Thanks. So the first thing is we had a monitoring data set of a building that was first operated for 6 months with a conventional control scheme and afterwards with a new control scheme, mostly fine-tuning the control system parameters, mostly the inlet temperature of the heating system. And we could find out in our analysis that we get actually a reduction of the energy consumption by this new control scheme. And we even could quantify it, but kind of we learned something that's a very old idea, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 500 years before Christ, where Heraclit already said you cannot step into the same river twice, which basically means it's very difficult to compare 2 years that are not fully identical, which is very seldom in our region of Switzerland, of course. Then regarding the heat energy, sorry, this is the short term, wrong slide. Okay. So,
Should I go?
No, I reordered them. So the question is, the title of this challenge is digital twin. So one application we wanted to show is basically, can we predict the temperature evolution simply based on external ambient temperature and radiation input? And Nikolaus from FNHW made an excellent job in kind of training neural networks. As you can see, we get very small deviations, 4.1 Kelvin, indicating that we can rather accurately predict the evolution of the temperature within the room using neural network technology. So we are able to predict the evolution of the room temperature depending on the ambient conditions. And the second thing is something
sorry.
else.
Sorry. I
How
went
much
too
time do I
fast.
have?
No, I was just flipping too fast. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. You see, I mean, as always, with very good example, we have one case running very, very well. We have one case where we have a little bit more challenges, but keep in mind, I mean, this is real room temperature, so you see we didn't fake up data. So most likely these events, these huge deviations you can see here, are caused by somebody opening the window. And then immediately the room temperature, of course, drops. And this is something that was not an input parameter in the model that we considered, so therefore we also couldn't predict it. If we then, maybe next slide, thanks. If we then go to a longer time period, we found out that actually our measurement data correlate very well to a delay function of the ambient temperature and on the radiation. So we trained a very simplistic model that you can see here in blue in comparison to the measurement data. And you see with some trickery of time delays, a bit of linear regression theory, we basically could achieve a rather well-fitting model. So you see the agreement of the two curves is very good. And so I think this should remind us again that don't always use your super sophisticated 200 layers, 500 nodes, neural networks with feedback loops and recurrent features and all that stuff. Sometimes linear regression with some trickery, I agree, can already do a pretty good first job. So please don't forget that that also was a very interesting outcome of this work. And then we also found out that the deviation we identified strongly correlates with the external radiation, which of course is not rocket science, but we were really surprised how well the major deviation peaks match to the radiations in real world data. We're not talking here about synthetic simulations. Next slide, please. One big challenge we wanted to analyze is what could be used then with this monitoring data, which could be applications from all these room sensors and whatever, and novel services. And I don't want to walk you through all the details because otherwise I would require 40 minutes instead of 4. The simple thing that I consider to be important is typically you consider the usual stakeholder groups, owners, families, and so inhabitants, facility managers. That's kind of straightforward. But in particular, keep in mind, if you're talking about digitalization, there is also the evil guys out there with the idea to break into your system and try to fill your coal in the deepest winter, or to make you sweat like hell in summer in case they simply turn on 30 degrees outside your heat system. Next slide, please.
So it rung.
Sorry?
It rung, the time rung, but.
Yeah, I think we have 2 more slides, so I think it should be fine. If you're interested, here you find our thoughts about benefits, fears, and obstacles. Next slide already. So what could we consider as the future of the project? Well, there's a data science approach to that, saying, of course, we could add more parameters to explore how far can we push the limit of basic approaches. On the other side, from the neural network perspective, we could ask ourselves, how far can you push the prediction horizon using different data, different buildings, because I mean, you all know between 2 dots, there is always a connecting line. So that's kind of, I mean, making something fit is the first important task, but making it fit for all buildings is a much, much higher challenge. And then kind of, we already heard the, I think it was in challenge 5. The big question is always how to address the question of data privacy and all these related aspects where we really have the problem. So while preparing the slides, we still had Luca's presentation of challenge 2 in mind, but actually also now with this stack set, it's very well related to challenge 5. So with that, I would like to conclude and thank a lot the team, which is noted here. And of course, you're always welcome to go through the slides. In case you don't have questions anymore, I would be this person, but all team members would be very happy to answer the questions.
Any questions from your tired brains? Under oxygenated? No, it's good. So I hope you're here for the apéro and you're also ready for answering questions that might pop up later. Thank you very much. So the group number 10, I can't pronounce tertiary, so
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. As you said, we have to investigate the trends in tertiary energy prices. And thank you very much. And here you can see the first thing we did is actually we plotted these prices. So we plotted the prices for the approved bids in the internal Swiss platform of TRE for regulatory energy, the tertiary regulatory energy. And we wanted to identify the factors of influence behind the market behavior. So we identified some influence factors that could be intraday prices, hydro plant production, hydro available capacity, and the demand for tertiary regulation of the grid. And on top of that, in the 20th of October 2020, a new platform was introduced. So on top of the Swiss internal platform for energy auction for tertiary energy, we also had an international platform, which is called Zurich, in which the participants could also place their bids. And this, of course, can be another important element of influence behind the behavior of the market.
This. No, this is just for the showing of the laser, if you want.
Oh, no. Okay. And yes, just a quick reminder of how the tertiary of the ancillary services works. So on the top of the slide, you can see positive and negative tertiary energy regulation. And in case of positive energy regulation, the power plant that is participating has to produce more energy, so has to increase its production level. And so the power plant is delivering some megawatts to the grid, to Swiss grid, and Swiss grid is paying an appropriate amount for that. While on the other side, for the negative regulation energy, the plant is doing the opposite. So the plant has to lower its production level and is actually buying energy from the grid and paying to the grid a favorable amount of money. And in relation to that, we wanted to identify the distribution of the prices, both for negative and positive regulating energy. And so we computed the median and the lower and the upper quartile. And what is interesting to see is that in case of positive energy regulation, the data that lie outside of this band are for extremely high prices. And that means that also the plants that were last in the merit order curves have to be dispatched at a very high price. While for negative energy regulation, the outlier data are for negative prices. And this is something very interesting because it means that there was actually not enough negative regulation, negative energy in the grid, and the plants, the plants, instead of paying for the energy to Swiss grid, actually reduce their production level and also get money from Swiss grid to do that. So in order to really understand what is behind these anomalies, we identified that for the negative regulation, the anomalies lie in negative prices, while for positive regulation, the anomalies rely in extremely high prices. And so we fitted our data to a random forest classifier model in order to understand the relative importance of each of the factors that we investigated. And we found out that for the negative regulation, the most important factors are the planned negative and positive production of the hydropower plants. While for the positive case, we still have the planned production of hydro plants, but also the intraday prices played a major role. So regarding the possible future steps of the project, Of course, something that could be improved is the feature engineering. So regarding the fitting model, and the features should be derived from merit order curves of the energy bits. And also, it's interesting to know the percentage of plant unavailabilities. And also, different new regression models should be explored and investigated for the fitting. And something that was actually one of our main starting questions, but we didn't have time to carry that out, is to assess the real impact of the introduction of the international platform on the market behavior. And yes, this is all from our side. We would like to thank our challenge owners that actually took a lot of time to guide us through the complex mechanisms of the market. And also here you can find our contacts, and if you have any questions. The other components of the group here as well for the questions. So that
Okay, so the question here.
So in your first graph, you were saying that the price jumped to 10,000 on a regular basis. Is that a sign that there isn't enough arbitrage in the electricity market, that they're always paying the same amount when it's in short supply?
I think there is actually a limit on the maximum price that you can bid. So it's 9,099. 9,000, yeah. So yeah, no, it's because I mean when you bid the maximum, you bid that amount that it's fixed. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question?
Yeah.
Or sorry.
So on the second, I think, slide, you mentioned that that the power plant, if it reduces the production at the beginning, you mentioned should pay something to the DSO. Huh?
Yes, this is correct. Let's say that the reasoning is the plant should reduce its production, but it has an open position on the intraday market, right? So if you decide to reduce your production, you still have to provide that amount of energy that you plant in the intraday market. So what you're actually doing is, instead of producing by yourself that like low amount of energy, you're actually buying it from the grid at a favorable price. So you're paying the intraday market price minus 20%. And by doing so, you're still on the positive net balance from the point of view of the power plant, because you're actually buying energy from the grid and selling it back to cover your position. But the price that you're paying to Swiss grid is convenient for you.
Okay, but you have already, I think, sent a tender to the DSO one day before for the production that you will have.
Yes, this is exact. You actually have two bidding stages. Yes. The first one is for power capacity reserve, and the second one is for the actual energy. And we are in our project, we are all investigating the approved bids. Yeah. So yes, what you say is correct.
But if you can't do it, if you can't sell, if you can't supply this actually production, and the DSO doesn't want it, then the DSO should pay you actually. I have this impression.
This is when we have negative prices.
Yeah. Okay.
When we have negative prices, it happens what you're saying. Okay. So the TSO is delivering the power plant the energy, and is also paying the power plant some money for that. And this is what you can see here. In all of these cases, this is probably happening.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other question? No? Well, congratulations. I'm happy to see that some people understand. Do you want to? Not like me. But yeah, I got the concept.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is also a little bit difficult for me, but I'll try.
Hello everyone. So another project released by Swiss Re is on the primary frequency service, not on the tertiary frequency service. So let me have a very brief reminder of what we had already yesterday. So we want to pre-qualify the candidates who are providing primary frequency response. So that's the aim. So we want to give them a synthesized frequency profile so that we can test the performance in reality. So it shouldn't be that strict to demotivate the candidates, but at the same time, it shouldn't be that relaxed so that we cannot ensure the security of the service that they will provide in reality. Next, please. So we have 5 years data of the frequency measurements, so provided by the Swiss Re. So first of all, we just made a static analysis of this data. As you can see, so this is the probability distribution of the frequency deviation. As you can see, we have like more negative frequency deviation than positive. Please, next. And it is just a more detailed investigation of that. You can just refer to that for the more detailed information. And here, you can see at actually which months you have more occurrence of the frequency deviation. As you, so if it is like more red, it is more frequent. As you can see, for example, in the summer, you have more frequency deviation, and also during the day, you can see actually, well, at the midnight, you have more deviation, and also in the evening, you have more deviation. Is next. And that is also some information for the days. You can also get some information out of that. But this next, what is important for us is that when we want to certify the candidates for the primary frequency response, we have to know the mechanism of the operation. Otherwise, we cannot certify them. So that's why we need very detailed technical knowledge along with the data knowledge. So we have to, first of all, analyze the raw data and identify the algorithms to extract the normal states and alert states. What are they? Actually, when you cannot actually just rely on the static information, as I already presented. You need to see if you have a certain frequency deviation, how long does it stay? If it stays a long time, you will enter to the alert state. In the alert state, you don't expect the provider to just provide power for a long time. After 15 minutes, it can jump out. So that's why when you want to build the synthesized frequency to test and certify your provider, you have to know the technical background of that. So first, we will analyze our historical database on this criteria. And for the normal operation range, we have to derive some matrices that are critical for the provider. Assume a battery provider. So one critical constraint is the energy capacity. One is the power capacity. One is the ramp-up power change, for example. Or another thing is the way that they are managing their energy, the state of the charge. So we have to derive some patterns out of the historical values that are critical for each of these constraints. So we will, here, in these 2 days, we just focus on the energy capacity constraint. So we can derive some, so we label actually our data based on this criteria. We cluster them, and then we take, actually, we have to use this criteria all together to construct our synthesized frequency profile that we're going to certify is that our candidates. It's next. So that's going to be the result. So it is just an example of 1 month in 2017, I think January. As you can see, we have only one alert state. The rest is all normal operation range. And if we zoom in, we see that, as you can see, we are, so it is the frequency deviation. We are deviating this limit for 15 minutes. That's why we will move to the normal state. And as soon as we will be, again, less than 100, we will move out from this alert state. So we have to do this analysis on the raw data so that we know that we have to focus on the energy required in this duration only. Because in this duration, your candidate can jump out, actually, when it is reaching its maximum capacity. So you do not force it, actually, to compensate for this part. Next, please. So here, so when I get all the data, I compute the energy criteria. So this is the maximum energy that's going to be required by the grid from the candidate during each normal operation range. So for each month, and depending, for example, for the January, we had 2 normal operation range. So at this time it was started, it was ended at this time, and then it is the criteria. Next, please. So we do the clustering. It is for the moment one-dimensional clustering, but it can be enhanced, can be multiple dimensional clustering. So we did the clustering for 5 clusters, and here is the probability of each cluster. As you can see again, we are hitting actually the minimum energy capacity. It means that we are more, let's say, critical in the discharging of the battery. We will demand the batteries to more participate as discharging elements. So it is more critical for them. And next, please. So it was all what we did on, in these 2 days, but there are many things to do in this problem. So it was very expanded project. So it is not very straightforward to address because it's very technical background as well. So we need to integrate the energy management strategy of the battery for deriving this criteria as well. For the moment, we just neglected this. We assume that there is no such energy management, and we need this maximum total energy requirement. But we have to integrate it, and also we need to derive other criteria for the power capacity, as I said, for the maximum power ramping, and also for the energy management strategy. So we will, along with the synthesized frequency profile, we will force the customer to have a specific value of a state of the charge at the beginning of the test. And then we will test it if it can survive during the test or not. So that's going to be the idea. And there are many things to do in this very interesting project. Thank you very much. So, if any questions?
I don't think I can ask a question now, but maybe somebody in the audience has.
Or afterwards, if there is
Or
any.
afterwards.
This time intervals where the frequency is out of the range, of course, are stochastic, and the TSO cannot know about this. In case that the candidate cannot provide a service at this time interval, the TSO is looking for another candidate to support and to provide this service.
So in practice, what's going to happen actually, as long as we are in the normal operation range, so it has a definite definition, this normal operation range. As long as we are in the normal operation range, all the subscribed providers should participate in any way. So, but when we enter to the alert state, the provider should be provide only for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, if it is hitting its maximum capacity, it can jump out. Another question.
I think for the sake of the time, we will let you,
Thank you.
Ask questions at the apero, but it sounds like a complicated game to play. I'm not sure I would spend my evenings in winter with that, but maybe there is some potential.
So I will challenge the climate neutral cities with a St. Gallen example. So again, our idea was to link the climate neutral goals until 2050 with individual made decision and help people take the right decision, knowing visualizing the data, knowing the data. So the first step that we did, we analyzed all of the data we had and found out that the main sectors responsible for CO2 emissions is the food sector, the mobility sector, so cars mainly, and heating for buildings. And in the residential area, that the main factor are the gas heating system and the oil heating system. Yes, you can. So first we started to think, okay, how can we show all this data to the people, and we started to make some prototypes, mock-up on paper, and then realized, okay, what we are doing right now for private persons is actually something that already exists. So CO2 calculation, you can find a lot of them. So we said, okay, let's try not to do the same like there is already, but try to do something new. And then we say, okay, then we are going to focus on the residential building, and in the residential building on the building owners, because they are the one that actually can do something. When you are a tenant, you can't do much about your heating system. No, it's safe. Thank you. Yeah, so we just split the teams and work in parallel. So on one side you had some people doing the prototype first on paper and then on the mirror board with some screenshots. And on the other side we try to connect with the API with the data that the data are working with the platform. And on the left side you see we did all the CO2 calculation. We did that on an Excel file, so it was kind of really parallel work. And then it all flowed inside the platform. We used a no-code platform, so we were like the no-code team. So it worked quite well. Next slide, please. Okay, so now it looks like that. Maybe you can try click on the link and see what happens.
Sorry. Here. Not so easy to reach.
So this is the calculator. So the idea is. So as a building owner, sorry. So you go inside the tool and you see, okay, this is all my buildings, my own buildings, and then you can tell them, look, your building is a good one, so A would be the 5 best percentage, for example. You have so much emissions, and this is your building type. Here, this data that you see, this no dummies, no fake, is connected to the API, so we're really proud of it. If you click on the arrow next to a building, yes.
Here.
So then the idea is to say, okay, I choose this building, and this is the state right now, the CO2 emissions from electricity, heating, space heating, and warm water, hot water. And I check what's happening if now from my gas heating I go on a district heating, so you can try to click and see what happens.
But it's difficult.
Or
it's just I have to orient myself, like district.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then it updates the graph and you see the difference. Yes.
So
Bad.
very bad. You don't do oil, please. So that's the idea. Maybe you can go back and.
I try. So let's see if it works. No, wrong. Sorry. Oh. So you're testing my fine motricity here. And this should be.
Yes, it's the slice. It's just a screenshot.
I don't know what. Ah, it's a slide. Okay,
Yeah.
that's why I'm a bit lost. And then, why doesn't it look presentation?
Yeah. There's just one
Well, now
slide,
it's stopped my presentation mode. I don't know how to get back.
but you can go to the next slides.
Sorry.
It's
Next slide.
okay. So big learning from our team was that you can actually hack without coding skills. You can do it. It was really great to see. And actually make something working. So we were really proud of it. Next step would be to implement more like automated calculation. Now it's more like Excel calculation. Improve the visualization, maybe add some cost function, and extend the platform for tenants, not just for building owners, but also for tenants. Include maybe the food and mobility sector. It would be great to integrate this in our own from the Stadtwerke, so from the customer portal that people really can use it. So go live with it. Yeah. So and then the team. The next slide. Yeah. So thank you very much for the great contribution. Was great working with you.
Any questions? Did I see a hand here? No. I think there are quite a lot of people actually interested in this topic, so I think there could be very interesting discussions at the apéro. Thank you very much. And we welcome the group number 15. Oh, okay, you're
Hello.
presenting on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, so let me see what I can do. Wait a minute. Where am I here? There.
Yeah.
Getting here. Sorry.
For me, this works well.
Presenting you here. Does it work? No, it's even smaller. I think when I do you have to be small and make sure this is. Can you try to talk?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Belle?
For some reason. I don't know why I'm so calm. Okay, I think I. Can you help me? I think it's my computer. Try again, maybe.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Does it work?
Check your volume.
No, but look, it does like that.
What is it?
I don't know.
Ah.
You have a clue?
Check your sound output.
You must be it's
Good. HDMI, it's coming out. Can you check that it's on the right channel? It should be HDMI on 1.
Yeah, it's open.
so.
Okay.
He's talking and we still can't hear him. So let's just switch to internal loudsprecher and just hold the microphone to your laptop.
Yeah. Can you try now?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it work with the mic.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you. So can you go to the first slide, please?
The first slide, and now it doesn't work.
Okay, it's actually, yeah.
Wait, here.
Right, okay. First of all, before starting, I should thank you all for giving us this opportunity, and sorry for inconvenience that we made because this event was in person, but thanks for accepting us to be part of this event, this amazing event today. I'm going to present you the work that we have done on the challenge number 15 on electricity heartbeat 2035 in the canton of Zurich. A collaboration between Buildtrix and IKZ. My name is Mojtaba. I'm CTO and co-founder at Buildtrix from Portugal. So next slide, please. Yeah, actually, Switzerland has a solid plan for energy strategy in 2050. And the plan is to reduce the environmental impact of the energy by integrating more renewable energies like solar panels, heat pumps, and also electrical vehicles. But how does the future of electricity consumption looks like in Switzerland? In order to understand this, and in order to know how is the future of the grid, we can go to the next slide. Yeah. The idea is to produce a geospatial visualization in order to understand where and when the electricity is produced and consumed in the grid of IKZ. And the solution could be a web dashboard with the GIS spatial visualization for the IKZ experts and for the public people in order to understand how their region, how the energy will look like in their region in future. And we use 100% synthetic data of the consumption and production from 2035 as a result of collaboration between IKZ and ETH Zurich. Next slide, please. The main issues that we tackled during this challenge was managing the big data with high volume and variety, which makes it even more harder when it's multidimensional, and the curation and preparation of the data for the visualization becomes a challenge. So next slide, please. The next step for us is going to integrate with other data sources like smart meter data and open source data in order to produce better insights and also enhance the dashboard with 3D GIS visualization. But the current solution that we provided today is presented in next slide. Yeah, it's a geospatial visualization for IKZ transformers. As you see, the experts in IKZ are able to use our dashboard in order to have a performance indication of each transformer in the region of Zurich on the map. Also, high resolution of the data based on the day and months on a heat map that gives them an indication on how the energy will be produced and consumed in that region in different days of the months and in different months of the year. They are at the same time are able to compare different stations with each other. And a more advanced visualization is to provide this in a 3D visualization in future. But our colleagues from IKZ, also provider of the challenge, they did lots of efforts, and they're going to present you in the next slide the visualization that they could provide during these 2 days. So I ask our friends in the room.
Yes, they're coming.
Awesome.
First of all, thank you very much, Mojtaba and Charlotte, for thinking about how the database could be built up to make those visualizations possible. We split the tasks, and Matthias and I tried to take a first look at the data, analyze them, and use some tools to geospatially visualize them. So the main findings in that regard are, first of all, in summer, you directly see, if you look, for instance, at the heat map, that there's a lot of PV infeed around the moon. So this is now an example for per summer where you have some fluctuations, probably because of cloudy weather. And you can directly see you have a lot of in-feed where you also have higher population density and a lot of buildings, which is clear. And then you also, and then for winter, which is now not presented on this slide, one could clearly see that there is a peak in the evening due to heat pumps, probably due to heat pumps and EVs. Considering the demand, looking at the geospatial distribution of the demand, it became clear to us, which is kind of obvious, but we again saw it, that there is a clear correlation between the population density and energy demand. So we will have to do further analysis with the tools to export, and yeah, so.
Yeah, thank you. If there are any questions that we can answer.
Any question to the group? So it's going to be a bit more difficult to have you to the upper row. We would all like to come to Portugal, but no questions? No. Okay. So we go on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The full screen? No. Yeah, I don't know why. You take a risk. Your responsibility. Yeah, wait a minute. Sorry, because it's separated already.
Anyway, so the context of our challenge was we want to understand if it's possible for people to schedule charging of their electric vehicles in a way which reduces their climate impact. The problem here is that the input data we had was rather dirty. We didn't necessarily know if people were charging multiple cars or one car plugging in and out of multiple periods, and whether it's stochastic and differs from day to day. So we can't come up with general rules, but we really have to do analysis of every single possibility, and then we come to some interesting combinatorics on how many different ways you could schedule the same type of charging cycle over time. So this is just an illustration. We have average climate intensities of the Swiss consumption grid, but of course the average doesn't represent any particular day. So every day is different. And you of course have different seasonal patterns as well.
That's sweet.
Different seasonal patterns from winter and summer.
So next problem.
In addition to changing natural environment, you have changing environments within the home, or in this case, we're looking at the apartment blocks. And so we know that people plug in their vehicles at different times of the day. So the average is around 5 o'clock, but other people do it later and earlier. And that's important because the climate intensity of the electricity changes over time. And in particular, we know that the price is higher during the day. So the Queen's Coast producers are producing during the day, and then they're importing dirty energy during the night, which is when a lot of people are charging electric vehicles. So actually they're getting worse. Although that's a general pattern, it's not true for any particular case. And different vehicles have different charging powers and different charging profiles. And the profile is not the same for the same vehicle from day to day. Yeah, so given all that, we can build a very hackish algorithm to try to scan this possibility space. So the first thing is you can look at the charging cycle, and you can look at when they plug the cord in, and then they unplug the cord, and then we can move the charging cycle throughout this this period and try to figure out if they did do a shift, how much could we save? And we had 2 different algorithms doing this, and they came up with different answers, but we estimate between 10 and 15% of CO2. All things else staying the same. However, if we also look at, sorry, can you go to the next slide? if we look at the possibility of switching from the time period you're looking at to something like 12 hours in the future, which would mean either day to night or just looking at different weather conditions, then you can get much more, up to 25%. And in some cases, you can see that you can save up to even 80%, or let's say half the carbon in that. A function again of the particular vehicle, the season that you're looking at, and your individual charging patterns. So why are all those numbers wrong? So first is it's very hackish code. Certainly there's errors. The second is that we don't have a complete understanding of grid dynamics. So if everybody changed when they were going to change the charge, the generators would be dispatched in different ways. The import and export of electricity would come from different countries, and we have different patterns. We weren't able to completely clean the data, so we have some very interesting charging cycles which look like little blips, so we're not sure if they're the same thing. Over time, we only had 1 year of data, and that wasn't even complete for everything. So the number of chargers entering the market changed over time. So some would only be charging in winter because they just didn't exist in the summer. One interesting thing that we weren't able to get to was the idea of now that we have vehicles with larger batteries, they can not charge every day. If you have, say, a 40 kilowatt hour battery and you only use 8 kilowatt hours a day, you could go 2 or 3 days. And if you had a decent prediction algorithm, then you could already pick the days when you're going to have more solar and more wind energy. And perhaps there's also it seems like there's a possibility here for companies like Hightech or other utilities to install chargers at the workplace, because if the mix is on average much better during the day, then people should be charging at their work and not at their home.
You mentioned this mythical algorithm that could predict whether next day's weather, day after's weather would produce a CO2 emissions mix that's better. Does that algorithm exist yet?
I'm far outside my area of competence, but there's quite a lot of money in getting these answers right. So 5 to 10 years ago, this was a huge problem. My understanding is that the differences in the forecasts are getting smaller and smaller with time.
Okay, so it would be better, say, on Tuesday than wait till Wednesday, because you know on Wednesday the CO2 mix will be better to a certain degree of certainty. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in the real world, all this is probably the same. There's no precise numbers.
Sorry, everything's resisting a bit.
You have to reload because you have 2 browsers open. This is
Yeah, but I don't get to the
right one. Maybe you close this one, just close the tab if you don't need it, and then open it. And you should have now the other browser.
Let's just kind of get rid of everything.
Because you have the Google Cloud, this one up.
Yeah, but it's in a situation where it doesn't. Yeah, that's exactly my question.
It's, is it the Google Chrome or
It's,
is it?
I don't know if it's the Chrome or the something.
Can you double click on it? And move it
Let's-
to the right.
Yeah, wait a second. We just stopped the presentation.
Or you stop zooming, right?
No, I think I just stopped. the-
Because if you double the screen, right? If you have one screen only to present in the shortcut, then if you show the same screen on because then you have only one screen, right? Then you should be able to.
Yeah, normally it should be actually okay, but somehow something happened.
Now the
This one,
maybe reload this one to see where the right slides are.
Oops, sorry.
Go down where the slides are.
And then just reloading.
Yeah, you already.
So
There it
18.
is. There
And you didn't switch those
no,
up?
that's no, actually it's not showing the right slides. Well, then I show my slides.
No, wait. So
Then these are your slides, no?
No,
18.
it doesn't show the right. There is a slide missing.
Okay.
Because then I actually would, here it is. Maybe you move that one. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Good.
It's good?
Yep.
Okay,
We
so
start.
we try again.
Huh? Is it off?
Wait, I still have to do
Is the
something.
micro on now?
It's here. It has to be on there.
It's on.
Can
you hear us? Okay.
So,
Good.
sorry, I didn't.
We give you an update on the challenge 18, so on the interoperability tests on the meters. You may recapture a bit where we were standing yesterday. Actually, most of the green hooks that you see here were already quite green yesterday, so we were getting data up to an integration layer here. So every different meters from the different utilities, Dataset, EWB, Remote Energy, and AEW were actually up and running yesterday. We were successfully using actually the Dataset library that was contributed in the last Hackaday from 2020, also to work with the AEW meter. So from this perspective, quite good. Actually, that's the power of open source. We were actually able to reuse the content, adapt this, and bring back some hotfixes to the open source to also support different meters from different utilities. Today we focused on the integration into the UI. So in OpenHub and also in Grafana, we have now the data. So we were able to get all the data and visualize them. We also implemented the transformation and MQTT. So we are able to get different profiles from different years, harmonize the profile, and reissue the data on a common profile. That's also quite good. And then we also integrated from Herman, we also integrated an external data source over the legal plans. Next slide. So that's a bit the graphical thing, right? And maybe we can also go online on the left side to see the Grafana board in which we are tracking the power in of the different meters. So we are trying to give some power consumptions on the sockets of the smart meters, and on the right side, power out. That's actually a renewable plant that actually feeds. We also integrate. On the lower right side, and you may remember the definition of the challenge, by providing the data and getting data accessible in the automation system, we are now able really to visualize the consumption. We are also able to action the data. So we take the data, defining smart rules to, let's say, control loads and also, for example, load the EV charger depending on the renewable needs. So that's actually something we can do now with OpenHub in the next step. But I think we have the data now accessible. That would actually allow us to do that. Next. What is the next step and what would be required to really achieve a kind of interoperability and to address the interoperability issues? So we are just hacking here, but actually the main root cause is with the utilities and the industry in a sense, right? So from this perspective, we think it's quite important now. We somehow establish a kind of task force on the PSE. So that is actually an organization that groups all the utilities that would actually be able to harmonize the profile across the DSOs and to somehow make it a bit more easy. Let's say that all the data would actually issue the same, all the meters would actually issue the same data. I think that's something we could support on the political side. We could support actually also with these bodies that we have in place. We could also embrace these open source projects, like the one that has been contributed by Dataset, to really also get the MQTT profiling connected to it. I have linked here the GitHub repository from the smart data collector that we have used, actually. But we also will contribute our code as part of the Hackday. Another thing that we think is also quite important is maybe to start a kind of open hardware project that would provide a kind of plug and play experience to the end user, so that you can just have a small device that you plug in, and then all the readings and all the publication of the data is actually also from an end user perspective
So for end users, which are not engineers, it becomes very easy to resolve all these interoperability issues on the hardware side. So maybe that's something we could kick off in the future, or also get some support from the industry to finance it maybe as a bachelor thesis or something. And then I think it's also important really to do the community around it, right? To have users of that platform really to maintain it, to share the experience, and really spread the open source message out there to get it done. Here you see the contributors. On the left side, you see it looks low tech and also very chaotic. And actually, the first day was quite chaotic, I would say, to get all the things done. You cannot imagine how much troubles you can have with these devices. We had good support. I think, thank you very much for all the people participating, like Herman, Angelos, Derek, Jonas, Jordi, and Thomas for the great contribution, really great team, and a good diversity in the team, actually.
Yeah.
Experienced guys and very young talents joining us, really cool. Thank
Just
you.
it misses a few women, but they're
Yeah,
getting
well,
into
maybe
smart meters.
It's hard, very much. They're very attractive. Questions?
Is it possible with this platform for the customers to monitor in real time the energy consumption? Because
Yes.
as I know in Switzerland, there is this delay of 24 hours. Huh?
Yeah, actually, as you correctly stated, I think today is the customer interface that actually is provided by smart meters. By law, it's actually made accessible for the end users. But the reality is actually nobody can actually use it. So if you are trying to get the data from your utility, then it's delayed by 24 hours or something like this, and the resolution is not right. You cannot really use this data really to implement automation, to optimize the loads, right, or to use it for your PV in-feed to control loads. That's why here you have 5 seconds, so you can get the data in 5-second cycle time, and then immediately use them to run actions.
Thank you.
We have not, I think there were this initial comment on getting data. I think this project would be an excellent incubator also to take the data and republish them, make that easy for you so that you can, all the people who use it could actually provide their data and publish them. And then if there would be high resolution data, you could do much more data analytics on that side.
So I think we're back with the time. So for the sake of everybody's planning, we'll go on and the discussion can happen during the apéro. Thank you very much. Number 19, finance and financing solar energy.
Thank you, Morf. Okay, first of all, serve information. I'm the challenge owner, and I was looking for developers yesterday, but I didn't find anyone. So I was flexible, and I took over the role of the developer, and we arranged a new challenge, and actually something like a collaboration to SMEs. So also a very short recap from yesterday, what Refi is supposed to be. Refi is a very early stage project, a little bit more than an idea. And these is supposed to be a blockchain network that will facilitate a platform for financing renewable energy projects. So this is part, and each solar AG is going to provide the business layer. So actually the smart contracts, the libraries, and the different APIs needed for it. So Refi is a company who is doing tokenization of investments, solar investments, and Refi is doing it off-chain, so it's not using the blockchain for this. Next slide, please. Well, the challenge we agreed was to analyze the feasibility of this off-chain tokenization process on a blockchain, and to develop a backend implementation of this process.
Thank you, Mr. Yeah, sure. So yeah, before we get into what we were working on exactly, quickly, what processes do we actually want to map onto the blockchain? So Refi, we plan solar plants, and then we finance them by selling single solar panels to investors. So basically, that's where our real life tokenization happens. After that, we install the solar panels on a roof, we maintain them, we sell the electricity, and then from the income of the electricity sales, we give that back to the investor. These are long-term investments. Maybe someday the investor wants to trade the panel, wants to sell it to another investor. So we need to give the payments, obviously, to someone else. So what are the processes? First of all, there's always, whenever a panel is bought, there's a contract issued, an invoice, checking of the payments that we have to do. A lot of it we can automate, but it's always work to do. And then on a regular basis, when we pay out our investors, we need to manage the database of our investors, and we need to issue payments over and over again. And then when there's a trade of the panels, a new contract, update the database, and again, there will be invoice and payments. So how do we put this on? Oh yeah, right. So for the blockchain, the idea is to actually eliminate all of that once the panels are installed and sold, are on the blockchain. We don't do anything anymore, basically. That's the potential. So we try to implement that. So starting with the setup of the project, this is one of the current projects we are selling. So that's the real life case, basically. Solar plant in Bettenhausen. A panel costs 899 francs, and there's 99 solar panels, right? So what we do first, we need to create an NFT on the blockchain, which represents the full solar plant, which we did, and then deploy a fractionalization into the 99 panels. One advantage would be you're basically free to fractionalize even further. There doesn't really matter. Next, please. So next step is the buying process. Someone, let's say, buys 10 panels in our web shop. Once he buys, two things happen. First is the different fractions are minted, exactly the 10 he buys. And at the same time, the funds are transferred. You can see it worked. How we implemented it. The balance of Refi in Swiss francs was 0. Of the investor was initially set to 10,000. Next, please. And then that's the price of the solar panels. That was given to Refi. Investor was deducted that, and he has 10 fractions on his chain, and he actually owns this on the chain. So what were we able to do?
Something was missing?
Yeah. Okay.
I think one slide is probably missing. It goes twice, same.
There's a bunch of slides missing. But yeah, okay. So anyways, so we were able to basically implement that on the blockchain, and also the owner database, which with every transaction has automatically updated, and there can not really be mistakes. What we couldn't do is issue the payments, and the whole marketplace we couldn't do yet. So now, where do we stand? There's still a long way to go. It was very exciting to work together. Like we for Wi-Fi, and that's also something I can give to Vasileios for what we need. Really need that marketplace. We need to be able. Oh, there they are. We need to be able to make these payments, and maybe oh, that's right. There's supposed to be smileys everywhere. Yes, they don't.
Well, no, there's a little.
No, I can go back. Yeah. Yeah, the front end. Like now, we didn't have a front end developer. Something you're looking for, right? And the big thing, I guess, is acceptance of end users, which from a business perspective is a big unknown. It's still blockchain, it's complicated, a lot of people don't understand it. So will our investors be willing to move to a new technology?
Yeah, what we also plan is to, after I have the prototype, to deploy it on a testnet, and then we run some, we invite pilot users to use the platform and provide us feedback how to make it better, and to simulate some initially fake projects of Refi, and after real projects. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the next group and the last group, how sustainable is this property?
Good afternoon and hi again. I would like to again start with a question. If you think about your next property search, who of you would appreciate to have more information, echo information than is available now? Please raise your hands. I see a lot of hands, and this is great because that's what our challenge was about. Develop an API for accessing public available eco-housing data and collect and combine this, and then process it and bring valid information for real estate marketplaces. I would like to give over to the results.
Okay, that's already the results. I have another challenge for you, Mark.
Oh, okay.
I have to click to this link. Is that possible?
It's most probably possible, but we will see what happens.
So beside the conceptual work, we did quite a bit. We created an API where you can put in an address and you get as a result some variables, some attributes about one building. And here on this website, you have a front end where you can apply this API, and I try to.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You need both hands.
To put one in. So it has to be wide, otherwise it will not work at the moment. So I hope this is right. No, it's not. Oh, Harry's wheel. Oh, thank you. Yeah, there are two typos. Yeah. And Harry's wheel. I don't know where it is exactly. Oh, Harry's wheel. So the last one. Okay, now it worked. So finally, so here you have in this prototype the production, the annual production of the photovoltaic on this address, and the idea is to finally have also like a label or rating of this building. For example, here that's just as an example. Like the rating A to G. And Yeah, I think that's it. The code is also on GitHub, and you can also try the API on the link, I think, on the opendata.ch.
I will go to the next slide.
Yeah, now we have to do the little trick.
Oh, okay.
This should be that.
Yeah, exactly. So what is behind this API? We use for that real-time two other APIs. One on the left-hand side is from the Swiss topo, so behind there are data from the BFE. And the other one is from an European platform. And we combine that to get the value, so the annual value of the production. And that's what we provide now over our API.
Yeah, this can then be exactly this approach can be double-sided to do another data sets. And now we come to the vision, and we learned that there are plenty of possible partners around which might have not exactly the same use case, but probably have similar data sets they use. So we would like to partner with them if possible. One already now partner is Open Data. I'm very happy that that this function now is working on the server of Open Data at the moment. Yeah, and then when we searched for partners and found them and think about data, schemas, and maybe also a rating and a label of each house, which would be maybe also kind of
German.
Official kind of, yeah. And then we would like to further develop this platform. It should be still open data as much as possible, with API access and also having a database. And we would then release this platform and go into operation so that use cases can progress. Maybe the eco-habitats with an eco marketplace, or the real estate marketplaces, maybe Gebäudepass. And as you see, this is a big challenge going on and quite a big idea, I think. We need a strong team. And we have written here some positions. We did not have time and place to publish all positions we would appreciate to have. But if you feel excited about this idea, then join us. I would be very happy about that. And I'm also very happy about the current contributors like Jonas, Oleg, and Matthias, who did a great job. Without them, I would not have any chance to come so far. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everybody. First, an enormous thank to everybody. I will be super fast, so thank you. Become a member of Open Data, 30 francs per year. There is not much of goodies behind it apart from supporting us, having some reductions at our forum, yearly forum, and being informed about our great events. And there are many, so this is the forum that's coming in October. I would really advise you to get a look. It's about invisible data and how to deal with it and how to deal with the missing of it. And have a look also to our many other events. Especially I would like to make a bit of publicity for the Smart Regio Lab, which sounds a little bit regional, but actually is, you've seen for this in Gallen,
challenge that is actually a perfect size to actually test concepts and hopefully to then scale them up. And there are two very interesting challenges about energy going on. And then I guess see you in 22 next year for the next Energy Data Hack Day. See you then, and enormous thank to all of you. I think, Peter, you wanted to say a word. I'm sorry we're a bit late, but those of you who can still stay and listen to Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know I'm staying now between you and the upper row, and this is a dangerous position for me, and I make it short. It was very cool also this year to have you here. Hackathon is only live when hackers are there and teams are working and collaborating. I think this was great also. The third time that we could have you here at the Energy or at the Hightech Zentrum in Zurich. We are working on innovation the whole year. We're doing lots of innovation projects, different types of. I'm heading the section of energy and environment, or energy and resource efficiency, sorry. And we also participate in the Open Farming Hackdays. They were 2 weeks ago, and probably also next year they will take place. Probably it's also interesting to you. But for sure, we're also doing the Energy Data Hackdays next year, 2022. And I'm happy to see you again. So thanks to all of you, thanks to the collaborators, to Open Data, Zukunftsregion Aargau, Matthias Seifert, he had already to leave. This is yeah, let's say sad, but I think we have to applaud him, and probably he will hear it because he did a great job. Yes, okay, I think I come to the end now, and the upper will start. Thank you.
Thank you.